My best friend forged documents while I was unconscious from a car crash to steal our startup company. I let her fail. 2 years later, she's working retail and sending me restitution checks from 3 different jobs. My best friend Sarah and I bonded freshman year over being the only people in our dorm eating cereal for dinner 7 nights a week. Not by choice. We were just broke as hell. She'd joke about getting our calcium while I'd point out Lucky Charms had vitamins. So technically, we were health gurus. Everyone else whined about their only $3,000 monthly allowances. I wanted to throw my shoe at them, but shoes cost money. The startup idea hit after my dad died. He'd fought depression for years but couldn't afford help. The night I got the call, I was ugly crying into stale Doritos. Sarah didn't hit me with any everything happens for a reason bullcrap. She just grabbed my laptop and said, so let's build it. That's when I knew she was my person. For 2 years, we lived on coffee and spite. I coded until my eyes burned while Sarah handled business stuff. She kept asking me to explain the technical architecture, and I'd draw terrible diagrams trying to make it simple. I thought she just wanted to understand our baby better. The night of my accident, I'd been up 36 hours straight. Pitch competition was next week. $100,000 prize. Life-changing money. I remember thinking I should pull over, but I was 10 minutes from home, and apparently I think exhaustion is just a mindset. Woke up in the hospital feeling like someone played whack-a-mole with my body. Broken ribs, concussion. Sarah was there crying, saying she'd handle everything. Doctors said I might have memory gaps, so I gave her all my passwords. Someone needed to update investors, and my brain was scrambled eggs. She came daily with pudding cups. I was so drugged I just nodded like a bobblehead. 3 weeks later, I'm home scrolling LinkedIn and see, congratulations to Sarah Chen, winner of TechStart competition. I literally dropped my phone on my face. Screenshots showed our app renamed, but I recognized my code immediately. When I called, she had this rehearsed speech about executive decisions. Actually said, you were too sick to participate, like I chose to get T-boned. The audacity was impressive in a sociopathic way. I went detective mode. She transferred all our code to her GitHub the night of my accident. Security footage showed her there at 3 a.m. downloading everything while I was getting my stomach pumped. Found email drafts where she'd written apology letters but never sent them, like keeping a crime diary. She'd pitched solo, told investors I had personal issues, created an LLC in her name, emptied our emergency fund we built selling my Xbox. Her Instagram was full of solo female founder overcoming adversity posts. Yeah, the adversity of stealing from your unconscious best friend. My lawyer laughed when I called him. No written partnership agreement meant I was screwed. Sarah changed enough code to call it her version, and my head injury made me an unreliable witness. Legal fees would cost more than I'd win. Friends bought her story. The university took her side. I went from co-founder to ghost in 3 weeks. 3 months later, I'm eating cereal for dinner when Sarah calls sobbing. The app crashed during an investor demo. See, I'd built complex neural network architecture and she'd been trying to patch it but made it worse. Like Band-Aid on a severed artery, worse. Investors gave her 48 hours or they'd pull funding. This girl who stole everything offered me 10% equity to fix it. 10% of my own creation. The balls on her were astronomical. I hit record, let her ramble about being nothing without my skills, then said no and hung up. Went straight to the lead investor with receipts. Our GitHub history showing I wrote the entire code, plus the recording. He was pissed about being lied to. Offered to fund my new venture if I rebuilt everything, but only if Sarah publicly admitted the truth. She refused. Hired developers who all failed. The app crashed, lost thousands of users' data. Her company folded faster than a lawn chair in a hurricane. Meanwhile, I rebuilt everything better. Dad would have been proud. I plan to launch next month with serious VC backing. Then yesterday, a patent notice arrived. Sarah filed for our technology using fake dates from when I was unconscious. My lawyer said patent offices favor whoever files first. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I know what Sarah did. I have proof, but I need something from you first. They attached a screenshot that made my hands shake. An email from Sarah the day of my accident. It's done. They signed everything while sedated, but the sender's address wasn't Sarah's. It was the hospital IT admin forwarding Sarah's email to someone else with the message, as requested. This should help your friend's case. They wanted to meet at our old campus coffee shop. Their next text made everything click. My sister was your nurse. She saw Sarah with those papers while you were unconscious. We have the security footage she made us save. I had 13 minutes until the patent challenge deadline. I looked at my dad's picture and smiled. Sometimes the universe sends you exactly what you need. I grabbed my jacket and ran out the door. The coffee shop was 15 minutes away, but I made it in 10. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. This person had everything I needed but wanted something first. That never ends well. The place was mostly empty when I walked in. Just a few students hunched over laptops. I scanned the room and spotted someone waving from the corner booth. Young guy, maybe mid-20s, wearing scrubs, made sense of his sister was a nurse. I slid into the seat across from him. He looked nervous, kept glancing around like Sarah might pop out from behind the espresso machine. I asked what he wanted and he pulled out his phone. He showed me more screenshots. Sarah's emails to the hospital IT admin bribing him to let her access my room after hours. Security footage timestamps showing her there at 2:47 a.m. with a stack of papers. His sister had saved everything because she knew something was wrong. I asked again what he wanted. He said his sister got fired for refusing to let Sarah back in my room a second time. The hospital blamed her for a security breach, even though she was protecting me. Now she couldn't find work because they blacklisted her. He wanted me to hire her at my new company once it launched. Full benefits, decent salary, the works. I almost laughed at how simple it was. I was expecting blackmail for money or equity. This guy just wanted his sister to have a job. I said yes immediately. Told him she'd be our head of operations if she wanted. He smiled and handed me a USB drive with everything. Emails, footage, witness statements from other nurses who saw Sarah but were too scared to speak up. I had 3 days left to file the patent challenge. Called my lawyer from the parking lot and sent everything over. He said it was more than enough. We'd not only block her patent but could file criminal charges for fraud. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about how close I came to losing everything permanently. If that nurse hadn't saved those files, if her brother hadn't reached out, Sarah would have owned my life's work. The next morning my lawyer called. The patent office accepted our emergency filing and froze Sarah's application pending investigation. He said with this evidence we could also go after her for the competition money she won using my code. I thought that was the end of it. Sarah was done. I had my proof. Everything would work out. But then she showed up at my apartment. First time I'd seen her in person since the hospital. She looked rough. Hair unwashed, bags under her eyes, wearing the same hoodie from our coding days. She tried to push past me when I opened the door. I blocked her and told her to leave. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that she panicked when I got hurt and made bad choices. Classic Sarah, making herself the victim. I told her I had the evidence and her patent was dead. The way her face changed was scary. Went from crying to cold in half a second. She said if I pursued this, she'd make sure I never worked in tech again. Said she had connections now, people who believed her story. I laughed and started to close the door. That's when she said something that made my blood freeze. She knew about my mom. See, I'd never told anyone except Sarah that my mom was undocumented. Been here since I was a baby but never got papers sorted. Sarah said one phone call and immigration would be knocking. I wanted to slam the door in her face but I couldn't move. She smiled, knowing she'd found my weakness. Said all I had to do was drop the patent challenge and she'd leave my family alone. Even offered to give me 20% of future profits. Like I was supposed to be grateful. I told her to get out. Said if she went near my family I'd release everything online. She shrugged and said nobody would care about some programmer drama. Then she left, just like that, casual as anything. I called my mom right away. Told her to stay with my aunt for a few days. Made up some story about renovations. Then I called the lawyer. He said threats like that were criminal but hard to prove without recording. Should have been recording but I was too shocked. That night I installed cameras everywhere. Door, windows, even one facing the street. Paranoid maybe, but Sarah had crossed a line. Going after me was one thing. Threatening my mom was different. 2 days passed with nothing. I filed the patent challenge, sent the evidence to investigators, even reached out to tech journalists about the story. Then things got weird. First my GitHub account got hacked. All my new code for the rebuild disappeared overnight. 6 months of work, gone in an instant. The backup files on my laptop corrupted at the exact same time, showing nothing but error messages when I tried to restore them. Too convenient to be coincidence. I'd been coding for years, through college hackathons and startup weekends, and never had both both fail together. The timing was surgical, deliberate. I spent the entire night trying to recover something, anything. My fingers cramped from typing commands, eyes burning from staring at terminal windows. Every recovery tool I tried hit the same wall. The repositories weren't just deleted, they were overwritten with garbage data. Someone wanted to make sure I couldn't rebuild. Then my bank called about suspicious activity. Someone tried to drain my checking account using my card info. 3 separate transactions, each just under the reporting limit. The bank caught it, but still. Sarah knew my birthday, my pets' names, all the stupid security questions I'd answered over late-night coding sessions. She'd been my best friend for 3 years, my co-founder, the person I trusted with everything. The bank representative walked me through freezing my cards, but I could hear the routine in her voice. This happened every day to someone. I wasn't special, just another victim of identity theft. Except I knew exactly who was behind it. The betrayal stung worse than the financial hit. I changed every password, enabled 2-factor on everything, even got a new phone number. Started backing up code to physical drives I kept in a safety deposit box. 3 different banks, different drives, different encryption keys. Felt like I was losing my mind, but what else could I do? Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. My apartment became a fortress. New locks, security cameras, even a doorbell camera that recorded everyone who walked by. The delivery drivers probably thought I was paranoid, watching them through the app before opening the door. Maybe I was, but paranoia felt safer than vulnerability. The nurse's brother texted asking if we were still good for his sister's job. I assured him nothing had changed. He mentioned Sarah had been calling hospitals asking about his sister, trying to find dirt probably, making up stories about incompetence, asking if there had been any incidents. These people had helped me when I was at my lowest, and now they were getting dragged into this mess. His sister had been nothing but professional during my recovery. Competent, kind, exactly the type of person who deserved a second chance after whatever bureaucratic nightmare had cost her the hospital job. The fact that Sarah was trying to weaponize that connection made my stomach turn. I decided to speed up my launch timeline. Originally planned for next month, but Sarah was escalating. Every day I waited gave her more time to sabotage things. My new investors were supportive when I explained the situation. They'd seen enough startup drama to know these things happened. One of them even offered to connect me with a security consultant who specialized in corporate espionage. The consultant was expensive, but worth it. He found 3 separate keyloggers on my devices, sophisticated ones that recorded everything. Sarah had been watching me rebuild for weeks. Knowing she'd seen every line of code, every design decision, every moment of progress made my skin crawl. We cleaned everything. Started fresh with military-grade security protocols. Started working 18-hour days again. This time I was smarter about it. Took breaks every 2 hours, ate actual food instead of just energy bars, slept at least 5 hours. Couldn't afford another accident. The memory of that hospital bed, the weeks of recovery, kept me grounded. The code was coming together beautifully. Better than our original version, because I'd learned from all the mistakes. Every function was cleaner, every algorithm more efficient. The mental health features I'd only sketched out before were now fully integrated. Real-time mood tracking, crisis intervention protocols, connection to licensed therapists. Everything my dad could have used if technology like this had existed 20 years ago. Then my mom called crying. Someone had reported her to her employer saying she was illegal, and they should check her papers. Anonymous tip to HR claiming she was using fake documents. Her boss knew her for 15 years and didn't care, but it rattled her. She kept apologizing like it was her fault, switching between English and her native language the way she only did when truly upset. I told her to pack a bag and come stay with me. She showed up at my door with 1 suitcase and 20 years of fear in her eyes. My mother, who'd worked 2 jobs to put me through school, who'd never taken a sick day, who paid taxes religiously, reduced to defending her right to exist in the only country I'd ever known. Sarah knew exactly which buttons to push. That night I sat in my living room with my mom asleep on the couch and felt rage like never before. Pure, crystalline anger that made my hands shake. Sarah had involved the one person I'd die protecting, all because she couldn't handle being exposed as a fraud. The entitlement was staggering. She'd rather destroy lives than admit she'd stolen code. I made tea to calm down, the same chamomile blend my mom always made when I was stressed. The familiar ritual helped, but the anger remained. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was personal in ways that crossed every line of decency. I called my lawyer about restraining orders. He said without direct threats or physical contact, it would be tough. The immigration thing was serious, but proving Sarah made that call would be nearly impossible. These systems weren't built for this kind of harassment. Cyberstalking laws hadn't caught up to reality. He suggested documenting everything, building a paper trail for future action. So I got creative, posted on every tech forum about what happened, leaving out names but including enough details that people could figure it out. The startup community is small, people talk. Within hours I had messages from other developers saying Sarah had reached out trying to hire them. My inbox exploded with screenshots and stories. One guy sent me screenshots of Sarah offering him double market rate to build her app. She was burning through her remaining investor money trying to recreate what she stole. He turned her down after Googling her and finding my posts. Said the whole thing felt sketchy from the start. Her desperation was showing. Another developer forwarded me her technical requirements. She was trying to reverse engineer my work from memory, but the specifications were full of holes. She understood the surface, but not the architecture underneath. All those late nights where I'd coded while she'd managed were coming back to haunt her. The patent investigation moved faster than expected. Turns out the evidence was so clear they expedited it. Sarah's application got rejected and flagged for fraud. She'd have to explain the forged dates to keep her other patents. Career sewers lied in the tech world. The investigator said he'd rarely seen such blatant falsification. My app launched 2 weeks early. I called it Haven, after what my dad couldn't find. Simple name, but it meant everything. The logo was a small house with a heart inside, home and healing combined. The response was incredible. Thousands of signups in the first day. Mental health professionals reaching out wanting to partner. Everything Sarah pretended to want when we started. The launch event was small, just investors and a few journalists. I kept expecting Sarah to show up to make a scene. Instead, the night went smoothly. People genuinely excited about the technology, about the potential to help. One investor's daughter had struggled with depression. He pulled me aside to say how much this meant personally. The nurse I hired turned out to be brilliant at operations. She streamlined our whole onboarding process and had ideas for features I hadn't considered. Her experience in psychiatric wards gave her insights into crisis management that improved our emergency protocols. Her brother was right to fight for her. Sometimes good people just need someone to believe in them. She suggested color-coding urgency levels in a way that felt intuitive rather than alarming. Small changes that made big differences. The kind of practical wisdom you only get from being in the trenches. Sarah would have dismissed these ideas as too simple. That was always her problem. She confused complexity with intelligence. Sarah went quiet for almost a week. No hack attempts, no threats, nothing. Her social media went dark. Mutual friends said she wasn't answering texts. I should have known she was planning something. Silence from her was never good. Even in college, her quiet periods preceded her biggest schemes. I kept my guard up but started feeling like maybe it was over. Started sleeping better, checking my security cameras less obsessively. My mom began cooking elaborate dinners again, filling my apartment with familiar smells. We didn't talk about Sarah, but her absence hung between us like a ghost. Then the reviews started. 1-star ratings flooding every platform, all posted within hours of each other, clearly coordinated. They claimed the app stole user data, charged hidden fees, didn't work as advertised. Complete lies but damaging. New users saw those and hesitated. Our daily signups dropped by 60% overnight. The reviews were sophisticated, mentioning specific features and using technical language, not your typical bot farm garbage. Each one was unique enough to pass basic filters but similar enough that I recognized the pattern. They all focused on trust and safety, exactly what someone seeking mental health support would fear most. I knew it was her. The writing style, the specific complaints about features only she would know about. One review mentioned a sync error with the mood tracking algorithm, something we discussed fixing in our original version. But proving it was another story. Review platforms don't care about personal drama. They just see ratings. I spent 2 days fighting fake reviews instead of improving the app. For everyone I got removed, 3 more appeared. My launch momentum died. Investors started asking questions. Everything I'd built was crumbling because of fake internet comments. The irony wasn't lost on me. A mental health app being destroyed by psychological warfare. My team rallied around me. The nurse organized a response strategy, having other employees reach out to real users for authentic reviews. We started a transparency blog, posting daily updates about the fake review situation. Some users appreciated the honesty and left supportive messages, but damage control isn't growth. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. One of Sarah's hired developers reached out. Turns out she'd stiffed him on payment and he was mad. He had emails of her specifically asking him to post negative reviews with screenshots of the payment promises. She'd offered him $5,000 for 50 reviews across different platforms. He'd recorded their video calls where she'd coached him on what to write, how to make the complaints sound authentic, which features to target, how to space out the posts. She'd created a whole playbook for destroying my reputation. The methodical nature of it shocked me. This wasn't impulsive revenge, it was calculated destruction. I took everything to the platforms. They removed the fake reviews and banned the associated accounts. My ratings recovered, but the damage was done. I'd lost crucial launch week visibility, starting from scratch again. The App Store algorithms had already deprioritized us. We were climbing out of a hole Sarah had dug. My mom was still staying with me. She cooked dinner every night and pretended everything was fine, but I could see the stress. She jumped every time someone knocked, checked her phone constantly worried about work. Sarah had poisoned her sense of safety. The woman who'd faced down poverty and discrimination was scared of an anonymous phone call. We developed routines to feel normal. Morning coffee together before I started coding. Evening walks around the neighborhood where she'd point out flowers and practice her English pronunciation. She'd tell stories about my father, things I'd never heard before, how he'd struggled with darkness even before I was born, how she tried to help but didn't know how. The investigator assigned to the patent fraud case called with an update. They'd found evidence of Sarah filing multiple false patents over the years, always right after partnerships ended badly. She had a pattern, and I wasn't the first victim. The scope was bigger than just our situation. He gave me contact info for her previous partners. I reached out to 2 of them. Their stories were eerily similar. Trusted her, worked together, then she manufactured some crisis to steal everything. One guy gave up tech entirely, became a teacher. The other was still fighting 3 years later. We compared notes over encrypted messages, building a timeline of destruction. We formed a weird support group, shared evidence, compared notes, built a timeline of Sarah's scams. She'd been doing this since sophomore year. Small projects at first, then bigger as she got bolder. We had enough to bury her professionally. The pattern was clear. She'd find talented developers, convince them they needed her business skills, then systematically steal their work. One victim shared court documents from his case. Sarah had used the same playbook. Fake reviews, harassment, trying to turn investors against him. He'd won eventually, but it had cost him everything. His marriage, his savings, his faith in collaboration. He warned me to protect what mattered most. I thought about going full scorched earth, posting everything online with names and receipts, but something held me back. Maybe it was my dad's voice in my head about taking the high road, or maybe I was just tired of fighting. Revenge fantasies were satisfying, but they wouldn't undo the damage or bring back the trust. Then Sarah made her biggest mistake. She reached out to my lead investor directly, told him I was unstable, that the accident had changed me, that she was the real brains behind the operation, even offered to build him a better version if he pulled my funding. She included mock-ups that were clearly based on my new design, things she could only know from those keyloggers. He forwarded me the emails immediately, asked if I wanted him to respond. I told him to play along, see what else she'd say. She sent him fake documents showing she owned majority stake in our original company, forged my signature and everything. The documents were sophisticated, good enough to fool someone who didn't know our history. She'd created an entire alternate narrative where I was the junior partner who'd gone rogue after a head injury, where she'd graciously let me try to rebuild but now needed to step in for everyone's good. The fiction was so detailed it would have been impressive if it wasn't so destructive. That was it, the final straw. Fraud was one thing, but actively trying to destroy my new start was another. I gave my lawyer the green light to proceed with criminal charges. No more playing nice, no more hoping she'd stop. The evidence was overwhelming and her latest moves had crossed into clear criminal territory. The police showed up at her apartment the next morning. I know because she called me screaming while they were there. Said I'd ruined her life, that I was vindictive, that friends don't do this to each other. The irony was thick enough to choke on. I could hear officers in the background telling her to calm down, asking her to step outside. She kept saying this was all a misunderstanding, that we could work it out, that I was overreacting to a business dispute. The desperation in her voice almost made me feel something. Almost. Then I remembered my mom's tears, the weeks of harassment, the systematic attempt to destroy everything I'd built. I hung up and blocked her number. Felt weird finally cutting that last tie. We'd been inseparable for years, shared everything from ramen recipes to family trauma, late nights debugging code while she ordered takeout, celebrations when we'd hit milestones. Now she was just someone I used to know who tried to destroy me. The arrest made small tech news. Nothing major but enough that people connected the dots. When I'd posted anonymously on tech forums about the situation, leaving out names, people had pieced together who was involved. Now with the arrest public, those anonymous posts suddenly had names attached through community detective work. Other victims came forward with their own stories. Sarah's reputation imploded overnight. Her LinkedIn disappeared. Her company website went dark. The startup she'd been trying to build around my stolen code evaporated. My app started growing again. Without the fake reviews and constant sabotage, users could actually experience what I'd built. The mental health features my dad would have needed were helping thousands. That felt better than any revenge could. Real messages from real people saying Haven had helped them through dark moments. The nurse I hired suggested we add a crisis support feature. Her experience in hospitals showed her how many people needed immediate help. We built it together and launched it free. No premium tier, no ads, just help when people needed it most. The feature connected users with crisis counselors in real time. No wait, no judgment. We partnered with existing crisis networks, integrated their protocols, made sure help was always one tap away. The nurse trained our support team personally, sharing techniques she'd learned over years of psychiatric care. Her brother helped us market it to communities that needed it most, but might not trust traditional mental health resources. Sarah's parents called me. They were mortified, apologizing for their daughter, asking if I could drop the charges, said she was getting help, but this was a wake-up call. I felt bad for them, but stayed firm. Actions have consequences. They'd enabled her for years, bailing her out of previous situations. This time she needed to face reality. Her mother cried on the phone, saying they didn't raise her to be this way. Her father, more pragmatic, asked about restitution amounts. They were good people who'd loved their daughter into entitlement. I understood their pain but couldn't absolve their role in creating the person who'd tried to destroy me. My mom finally went back to her apartment. Her employer had actually started the paperwork to sponsor her green card after the false report. Sometimes terrible things lead to unexpected good. She still checked in daily, but the fear was fading. She'd even started teaching ESL classes at the community center, turning her experience into something positive. The other victims and I testified for the investigation. Seeing Sarah in court was surreal. She looked smaller somehow, defeated. Her designer clothes replaced with conservative court attire. Her lawyer tried painting her as a struggling entrepreneur who made mistakes under pressure. The evidence said otherwise. She avoided eye contact during my testimony. I detailed everything: the theft, the harassment, the escalation. The prosecutor presented the forged documents, the recorded conversations, the pattern of behavior. Sarah's parents sat in the back row, aging years and hours. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she just shook her head. She got probation and had to pay restitution, not just to me, but to everyone she'd scammed. The amount was staggering. All that investor money she'd blown trying to recreate my code would have covered it, but she was broke. Would be paying us back for years. The judge ordered her to stay away from the tech industry during probation. I used my portion to expand Haven, hired more developers, partnered with therapists, added features for different types of mental health support. What started as revenge coding turned into something that actually helped people. My dad would have loved the irony, his struggle giving meaning to others' healing. The nurse's brother sent me a thank you card. His sister had been promoted twice already and was happier than she'd been in years. Funny how helping one person led to helping thousands. That connection Sarah tried to exploit became part of Haven's foundation. We started a hiring program specifically for people who needed second chances. 6 months later, I was at a tech conference when I saw her. Sarah was working a booth for some small startup, handing out flyers like an intern. phone. Our eyes met for a second. She looked away first. I kept walking. There was nothing left to say. The person I'd trusted was gone, replaced by a cautionary tale. My investor introduced me to other founders that night, told them about Haven's mission and growth. One woman pulled me aside after, said the app had saved her daughter's life during a dark period. Moments like that made everything worth it. The pain of betrayal transformed into purpose. I still check my security cameras sometimes, still back up code obsessively. Trust doesn't come easy anymore, but I'm building something that matters with people who actually care. That's more than most get in this life. The scars remain, but they've become part of my strength. The patent for Haven went through without issues. My name alone on the documents. I framed the approval letter next to my dad's picture. He never got the help he needed, but maybe his story could help others. That felt like justice in its own way. His memory living on in every person who found hope through technology we'd built. Sarah tried reaching out once more through a mutual friend. Said she wanted to apologize properly, make amends, start over. I declined. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some people aren't meant to stay in your life. That's okay too. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. Haven hit 1 million users last week. We're adding support groups and teletherapy options. The nurse runs operations like a boss. Her brother helps with marketing. My mom tests every new feature because she says if she can use it, anyone can. We've built something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. I think about those nights eating cereal with Sarah sometimes. How we dreamed about changing the world and getting rich. Neither of us imagined it would end with criminal charges and restraining orders. Life's weird like that. You plan for success but not betrayal. You prepare for competition but not sabotage from within. The irony is, she gave me what I needed. Her betrayal forced me to rebuild better, stronger, with purpose beyond money. Haven exists because she tried to steal the original. My dad's memory lives on because she made me fight for it. Sometimes the worst people teach you the best lessons. I still eat cereal for dinner occasionally. Not because I'm broke, but because it reminds me where I started, how far I've come, how much further I can go. The girl who shared those dinners is gone, but the dream we built survived. Just not how either of us expected. Now I eat it in an apartment paid for by honest work, surrounded by people who've earned my trust, building something that matters. The cereal tastes better now, like freedom, like victory, like hope. The next morning I woke up to 50 missed calls. My phone had been on silent, but the screen was lit up like a Christmas tree. Most were from numbers I didn't recognize. A few from my lawyer, one from my mom. My stomach dropped as I called her back first. She was fine but confused. Said reporters had been calling her work asking about me and some big tech scandal. I told her not to talk to anyone and hung up to call my lawyer. He answered on the first ring sounding stressed. Turns out Sarah had given an interview to some tech blogger, painted herself as the victim of a vindictive ex-partner who couldn't handle her success. She leaked selective emails and code snippets that made it look like I'd stolen from her. The story was already spreading across Twitter and Reddit. I opened my laptop and watched my reputation burn in real time. The narrative was compelling if you didn't know the truth. Young female founder destroyed by jealous male colleague. She timed it perfectly for maximum damage. Early morning post meant it spread all day while people commuted. My investors started calling. They weren't panicking yet, but wanted to know my response plan. I didn't have one. How do you fight a story that confirms what people want to believe? The tech world loves a good villain, and Sarah had painted me perfectly. I spent 3 hours writing a response post with all my evidence. Screenshots, timelines, documents, everything. But my lawyer said not to publish yet, said we needed to be strategic. Meanwhile, Sarah's version kept spreading. Every minute of silence made me look guilty. The nurse I'd hired showed up at my apartment with coffee and a plan. She dealt with false accusations at the hospital and knew how these things worked. Said we needed allies, not arguments. She started reaching out to everyone who'd actually worked with us. Former classmates, professors, anyone who knew the real story. By noon, we had 15 people willing to go on record about Sarah's history. The developer she'd stiffed on payment wrote a detailed blog post about his experience. Other victims started sharing their stories. The narrative began shifting, but damage was done. Some people would always believe her version. Haven's downloads dropped 30% that day. Support tickets flooded in from users worried about their data. I had to put out a statement assuring everyone their information was safe. Spent hours personally responding to concerns instead of improving the app. Sarah's plan was working even from behind her legal troubles. Then something unexpected happened. The tech blogger who'd published Sarah's interview reached out, said he was getting conflicting information and wanted my side. I sent him everything including the court documents from her conviction. He actually apologized, said he'd been played and would update the story. His follow-up piece was published within hours. He'd done real journalism this time, interviewed the other victims, verified documents, exposed her pattern. The headline read, "The real story behind the Haven controversy," with a subheading about serial fraud. Comments flipped from attacking me to supporting me overnight. Sarah tried damage control, but it was too late. She posted a rambling response accusing everyone of conspiracy. Said the other victims were my friends lying for money. Even claimed the court documents were fake. The desperation was obvious. Her carefully crafted victim image crumbled with each unhinged paragraph. My phone rang again. This time it was her lawyer saying she wanted to settle. Would drop all claims if I did the same. Even offered to publicly apologize. I almost laughed. She'd already lost in court and now wanted to negotiate. I told him she could apologize anyway, but I wasn't dropping anything. The nurse suggested we turn this into something positive. Use the attention to highlight Haven's mission. We announced a new feature for people dealing with workplace harassment and betrayal. Free resources for rebuilding after someone destroys your trust. The response was incredible. Downloads went up 50%. Sarah's parents called again. This time her dad was angry. Said I was kicking her while she was down, that she'd learned her lesson and I should move on. I reminded him she'd literally just tried to destroy me again with false accusations. He hung up when he couldn't argue with facts. A week later, I was debugging code when my doorbell rang. Delivery driver with a certified letter. Sarah was suing me for defamation over the blogger's article. My lawyer laughed when I called him, said she had no case but would have to respond anyway. More time and money wasted on her drama. We countersued for harassment, added the fake interview to her criminal case as violation of the no contact order. The judge was not amused by her behavior. Modified her probation to include no media contact about me or Haven. She'd played herself into tighter restrictions. The other victims and I started a support group that met monthly. Weird bonding over shared trauma, but it helped. We compared notes on recovery, both legal and emotional. One guy brought his therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. Turns out there's a whole field of study about people like Sarah. The therapist explained how certain personalities target trusting people, how they mirror your values to gain access, then systematically exploit that connection. It wasn't personal, even though it felt that way. Sarah would have done this to anyone talented enough to build what she couldn't. We were just tools for her ambition. That helped more than I expected. Stopped blaming myself for trusting her. Started seeing the patterns everyone else recognized. The love bombing early in our friendship. The subtle isolation from other people. The way she'd positioned herself as essential while contributing nothing technical. Haven kept growing. We hit 2 million users and added international support. The nurse suggested expanding to Spanish first since that was my mom's primary language. We hired translators and cultural consultants to make sure nothing got lost. My mom tested every word, proud her language was helping others heal. One of Sarah's flying monkeys reached out trying to broker peace. Said she was struggling with the legal fees and restitution payments, working 3 jobs and living with her parents. Wanted to know if I'd consider reducing the amount. I forwarded it to my lawyer who forwarded it to the court. Another probation violation. The judge added 6 months to her probation for continued contact attempts. Her lawyer looked exhausted at the hearing. Probably wasn't getting paid either. Sarah sat there stone-faced as the judge explained how probation worked. That no contact meant no contact through third parties either. I started speaking at conferences about founder betrayal. Turns out it's common, but nobody talks about it. The shame of being fooled keeps people quiet. My story helped others recognize red flags earlier. Started a whole movement of founders protecting themselves with proper documentation. The nurse got promoted to COO. She transformed our operations and deserved recognition. Her brother ran our community outreach program. We hired more people from non-traditional backgrounds. Built a company culture based on trust, but with verification. Everyone owned their contributions clearly. 6 months into Sarah's modified probation, she violated again. Tried creating a fake LinkedIn profile to connect with my employees. Our security protocols caught it immediately. The judge had enough. Revoked probation and gave her 90 days in county jail. Her parents finally stopped calling. I felt nothing when I heard about the jail time. Not satisfaction or pity, just nothing. She'd become a footnote in my story instead of a main character, the opposite of what she'd wanted. Her need for control had cost her everything while teaching me to let go. Haven launched a scholarship program for computer science students from low-income backgrounds. Full ride plus mentorship. The first recipient was a girl who reminded me of myself freshman year. Brilliant but broke, surviving on cereal and determination. We made sure she'd never have to choose between food and textbooks. The patent for our crisis intervention system got approved. This time I included the nurse as co-inventor since it was her idea. She cried when I showed her the paperwork. Said nobody had ever recognized her contributions before. We framed copies for both our offices. A Hollywood producer reached out about making our story into a movie. I said no. Some things don't need to be entertainment. Plus they wanted to add drama we didn't need. Car chases and corporate espionage when the real story was just about trust and betrayal. They didn't understand that mundane evil is scarier than movie villains. My mom became a citizen last month. The whole team came to her ceremony. She wore her best dress and cried during the oath. Afterwards, she said she felt safe for the first time in decades. That no anonymous caller could threaten her anymore. We celebrated with cake and cereal, honoring both journeys. Sarah got out of jail and immediately left the state. Moved back with extended family somewhere in the Midwest. Last I heard, she was working retail and staying off social media. Her tech career was over, but she was alive and free. More than she'd left some of her victims. The final restitution payment came through last week. She'd actually completed the full amount early by working multiple jobs. The check felt anticlimactic after everything. I donated half to mental health charities and used the rest to expand Haven's free services. Felt right turning her debt into help for others.